Well, those cabinet picks are not the only indication of what the economy under President Trump might look like. Last night, air conditioning company Carrier announced it had reached a deal with the president-elect to keep 1,000 jobs in Indianapolis, jobs the company had planned famously to move to Mexico. Here to assess all this, what it means, what it might mean going forward, Steve Moore, Trump economic advisor, and Robert Reich, former Secretary of Labor under President Bill Clinton and author of Saving Capitalism for the Many, Not the Few. Thanks both for joining us. So, Robert Reich, I'm sure you have many criticisms of the Trump economic plan, but you must concede keeping American jobs in this country, something you've been for many years, that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a great thing, Tucker. I think 1,000 jobs staying in Indiana instead of going to Mexico is a step in the right direction. I just don't know how that squares with bringing on Steve Mnuchin from Wall Street, who has been spending the last 20 years basically pushing companies to outsource abroad. I mean, there's some inconsistency there, isn't there, Steve Moore?
well, Bob, you know, we're the ones who are going to save capitalism because it needs saving. And you look at the whole economic program, Tucker, the tax reductions, the pro-America energy policy, the regulatory relief. I do think this is something this is an agenda that's going to create potentially millions of jobs. But on this issue of Carrier, you know, the issue really is, is it correct for the president to intervene with a company to try to save jobs? And I say, why not? You know, why not? I think it was a good thing. Look, you're not going to save the economy one business at a time, Tucker, but I think it sets a good example that this president is very serious about bringing jobs back to the industrial Midwest, which is something so much.
May I just ask Steve Moore?
No, hold on. I thought that was a fair question about Goldman Sachs. This is the third Treasury Secretary we've had in my lifetime, a recent history. From Goldman, Trump didn't run a pro-Wall Street campaign. It's a little weird. You couldn't find someone who wasn't from Goldman to run Treasury?
Well, look, I've worked with Steve Mnuchin on the tax bill. I find him to be incredibly smart in terms of public policy. He's a supply-sider. He wants to cut tax rates. I think he's a very good choice. Now, look, it is interesting how, you know, Goldman Sachs people seem to always appear in both administrations. As you know, Bob, there were Goldman Sachs people. Robert Rubin was a Goldman Sachs guy.
Oh,
so,
yes, yes.
You know, is there something wrong with that?
Well, it's not that there's something wrong with Goldman Sachs per se, but as I recall, Donald Trump ran as sort of a populist. He criticized Wall Street. He talked about not only draining the swamp, but also how Wall Street had sort of created a lot of problems for American workers. And here he is doing just what every president does when it comes to a Treasury Secretary. You turn to Wall Street, and a lot of them turn to Goldman Sachs. How can you justify that?
Well,
Bob, can I ask a question of you, though? So the American economy at this stage is heavily reliant on the finance sector, so it kind of makes sense in that way. How do you move our economy from basically a finance-based economy to something else and better? What's the answer?
Well, Tucker, one step you take, and I hope that Donald Trump does do that, President-elect Trump, to be accurate, and that is a major infrastructure program. That is, you use what government can do, and you also get rid of all of the tax breaks that Wall Street has, like the carried interest rule that so many you know, mergers and also hedge fund managers and all these other people have been using and abusing for so many years.
Bob,
you know, Wall Street has extraordinary political influence. You cut the political influence of Wall Street. You don't put a Wall Streeter in your Treasury Department.
Bob, that's exactly what you just described is exactly what we're going to do. I mean, Tucker, we are going to cut the tax rates. We're going to get rid of a lot of the special interest deductions and carve-outs in the tax system for particular companies. We're not going to, by the way, we're not going to have the government build 500 million solar panels as Hillary Clinton wanted to do. We do want us to take the special interests out of the tax code, greatly simplify it. That's something you and I think, should agree on, because I want to drain the swamp, and so do you.
Well, of course, but so, Bob, the carried interest loophole, which nobody really defends in public because it's impossible to defend.
We get rid of that, by the way.
Is there because Chuck Schumer...
Well, wait a minute. Steve Moore, you say you get rid of it, or got rid of it. You haven't even been... I mean, Donald Trump hasn't even come to office. He's already filling his administration with Wall Streeters, with billionaires. I mean, I don't understand how you can say that the Wall Streeters and the billionaires are going to... they're going to make the tax code simpler and get rid of all the benefits for all the tax benefits for all the wealthy people. I mean, it doesn't stand to reason, does it?
Let me answer the question. We're going to take away all their special interest breaks. And by the way, it is a centerpiece to Donald Trump's tax plan that the carry interest provision is gone. You should applaud that. And he's made a big deal. Remember, Tucker, he made a big deal out of that in 2 of the 3 debates, that the carried interest, special interest loophole is gone. So, again, I don't understand why. I would think Bob Reich would be on our agenda. I think you'd like what we're talking about.
Well, I like getting rid of the carried interest loophole. I really do.
Why is it still there? No one has ever explained to me how after 8 years of Obama, who's supposed to be on the side of the little guy, that is still there, and Democrats aren't throwing a fit about it. I never have understood that.
Tucker, I think they should, and a lot of Democrats have. A lot of Republicans and Democrats both go to the same trough. When it comes to campaigns, that trough is Wall Street. That's why it bothers me, frankly, that we've got another major Wall Streeter right there at the Treasury Department.
Also, I mean, when you talk about things that didn't get done, you talked about infrastructure. You know, one of the things we need in terms of infrastructure is pipelines. And Donald Trump has said in his first 100 days we're going to start rebuilding the Keystone Pipeline and another network of pipelines around this country. And by the way, that's not going to cost the taxpayer a penny.
Steve, that's a little tiny part of infrastructure.
That infrastructure?
Oh, so awesome.
We're talking about highways, and we're talking about all the piping in America.
But also
we're talking about all the sorts of infrastructure we need.
Well, we're going to do that too. But there's a lot of infrastructure that wasn't built under Barack Obama that needs to be built under Donald Trump. And look, here's what we're going to do. We're going to use that money.
Steve, we're going to have to wait until tomorrow to find out what you're going to do.
Build infrastructure.
Email me. Steve, Bob, thanks a lot for joining us. I appreciate it.